All right, good evening. Kim Baker here with Victim Survivor Conqueror Ministry and also for faith, family, and forgiveness. Okay, and I'll be sharing a little bit about that before I get off of here tonight about what's coming up. But tonight, first off, I wanted to say that if you tried to tune in last week and I wasn't here, it's because I had a real bad sinus infection and just wasn't able to do it. So I apologize for that. So basically, I'm gonna start back over. I know that 2 weeks ago I done the very first week, but I'm just gonna go ahead and start back over since I had to miss a week there, and so we'll just continue on with it. So, in this study, discussion, so forth, yeah, we're going to be talking about anger and and what happened to my slide? What? All right, sorry about that. I was on the wrong screen there. But anyway, anger, facing the fire inside of us. Okay. Um, this is a topic uh, that I struggled with for years. Uh, Still do every once in a while, but not like I used to. Okay. It used to be really bad. Um, so this one's kind of close to my heart. So we're going to talk about this, what anger is, um, where's it, where does it start, what to do about it, how to recognize it, and then how to overcome it. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay. So what is first slide is what is anger? Okay, because if I ask you what it was, how would you describe it? Okay. So, anger is a very intense emotional response to what? Ah, to our feelings. Okay. That's the thing about anger is that it's tied to our feelings. Okay. And feelings about what? Well, it could be frustration. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, it could be hurt where somebody has hurt us. Okay. It could be an injustice that's been done to us by someone. Okay? So this is all some of the things that where anger comes from. Okay. So here's two questions before we get started. Uh, and first one is anger inherently negative? Or is anger always, probably a better way I should have phrased this, is anger always negative? Okay. Now, anger usually always has a negative condon- connotation to it. In other words, we think of it as being negative, but we're going to see as we go through this that anger is should not or is not always something that should be considered negative. or looked at as being negative. Okay. And the next one is the next question, which usually will stir up some very intense discussions. Is anger a God given emotion? Did God give us the emotion of anger? Okay. Now, there's going to be some that's going to say without a doubt, no. Okay. They are hardcore, no, anger has nothing to do with God. Mm, well, I kind of beg your pardon on that. That's just my opinion. Okay. Uh, so yeah, my opinion is most definitely anger is a God given emotion. Okay. And we're going to look at that as we go through this. Okay. And so sorry about that. So let's look at a verse in the Bible. Okay. Comes from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. And here it is. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Okay. And again, that is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. Okay. So let's look at this verse a little bit in depth, okay, in detail. Okay. So here in the Bible, it's the word is telling us, be angry. Okay. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that God understands, God knows we're going to get angry about things. There's going to things that's going to come up in our life that's going to make us angry. Okay? But, okay, in the Bible, when you see the word and definitely the word but, be angry, but do not sin. Okay? So God is telling us that, hey, listen, child, son, daughter, whatever the case may be, I know such things are going to happen in your life that's going to make you angry. Okay? You're going to get angry, but do not sin. Okay? So that is telling us that anger in the emotion of anger, and especially the initial emotion of anger, is not a sin. Okay? But he's telling us be angry, but do not sin. So that means that anger can turn to sin, right? Yeah. So how does that happen? It by how we react to that anger. What we do with that anger is when it becomes sin. Okay. And one of the examples that I always use in this situation is this: is you're driving down the road, you come up to a red light, you got the green, so you start through the intersection, and bam, somebody runs red light, hits you, wrecks your car. Okay, are you gonna be angry? Yes, anybody would be. Your initial reaction is gonna be that you're gonna be angry. You're gonna get angry because somebody wrecked your vehicle. Okay? But it will not become sin unless we get out of that vehicle and we start cussing, throwing a fit, threatening to hit somebody, threatening to shoot somebody. Okay? That's when it becomes sin. Getting upset because your car got wrecked is not a sin, people. It's not a sin. Okay? But here in Ephesians, he takes it one step farther. Okay? And it do not let the sun go down on your anger. Okay? And we've all heard the old saying is never to go to bed mad. Okay? Never go to bed angry. But yes, we are most definitely talking about in marriage that we shouldn't go to bed mad at each other. Okay? But so what's he saying here? He's saying, okay, you're going to get angry, but don't you sin and don't stew over it. Don't fret over it all day long, letting it destroy you. If you let it destroy you, you're letting it become sin. Okay? So what he's saying is get it out, express it. Now, when I say express it, I'm not saying express it in a simple way. There's ways to express it without it being sinful. Okay? Now, I just want to show you a play on words here and how different words where we get meanings from different words and things. Okay? So in the Old Testament, what was the Greek word for anger? Okay? And here it is. Okay, this is the Greek spelling, and I have no idea, but it is interpreted as it is pronounced as orge. Okay, that is where we get our word for orgy. Okay, what's it? What's it saying? Telling us it's a very emotional um, emotion. It's a very powerful, very strong emotion. Okay, because yeah. So the term refers to it refers to anger, wrath, or indignation. Okay, so can you on uh, rating these as the least to the most? How would you rate these three words: anger, wrath, and indignation? So, which one would be the least angriest? I guess you would say. Which one would show the least amount of anger? Well, that would be indignation. Okay, that means that you're irritated. Yeah, that's what it could mean is that you're irritated. Okay, so number two then would be the actual anger, the word anger. Okay, wrath would be uh, number three on there. Okay, that would be out of those three, wrath would be the most intense. Okay, So now let's look at the magnitude. So what's the magnitude of anger? Again, anger is it's probably the most complex emotion that we have. Um, I believe it is because it encompasses so many different levels of intensity. Okay, so the first one is mild irritation. Okay, it causes mild irritation. Okay? This would be okay. You're annoying. Okay, annoyance, frustration, maybe displeasure. Okay. Next is frustration. This is a form. This is a stronger form of anger, and this could be triggered by obstacles, maybe delays. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you're traveling on an airplane. Going somewhere, and you just um, and your flight's delayed. Well, there's a little frustration there, isn't it? Okay. It could be from unmet expectations. Okay? Next is what we call righteous anger. Okay. So, what is righteous anger? This is a sense of anger that is directed towards uh, perceived injustice or moral wrong that that we feel like that we have a right. Okay, that's what it means that we have a right to be angry. Okay, and there's absolutely righteous anger. Okay, throughout the Bible we see righteous anger. Where God takes out anger on people, um, and so forth. Okay. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." And that is Mark chapter 10, verse 14. Okay? And what is this referring to? Do you know what this is referring to? This is referring to when Jesus was teaching on a hillside and the disciples were not allowing the children to come up to Jesus. And so what he was telling them is no, no, don't hinder them. Let them come to me. Okay. So he was indigent. Okay. There was a sense of anger. Would that be considered righteous anger? Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, Jesus he wanted everybody to be able to come to him, but he definitely wanted the children. Okay. All right. The next type of anger is resentment. Okay. This is usually a lot long. This is a longer lasting form of anger, and it usually stems from unresolved grievances or a perceived mistreatment towards us. Okay. Next is rage. Rage or wrath is intense, it's uncontrollable, and it leads to extreme reaction and loss of self control, and also a lot of times it will become aggressive. Okay? Somebody that presents that has rage, most of the time they will exhibit aggressive behavior toward the others. Okay. Next is what we call passive anger. Okay. This is uh, indirect expressions of anger. Okay. And how do we exhibit passive aggressive anger? Okay. Well, we could use sarcasm. Well, I'm just kidding. We might use the silent treatment or avoidance, or we may avoid altogether. Okay, this is where I lay. This is where I used to be. Um, you know, not anymore. I don't think. I don't feel like I do. But yes, this was big several years ago in my life. Okay? The next one is either chronic or suppressed anger. Okay, this is the type of anger that is not always expressed, especially outwardly, and it simmers beneath the surface. Okay, uh, we're still in the winter months right now, and so what is one of the our favorite meals this time of year is what stew in there. Okay, and that stew, if it's allowed to just sit there and simmer on the stove for a very long time, makes it pretty good, don't it? Well, when we're talking about simmering, okay, it works well on stew, but it doesn't on anger, okay? Because if we just let anger sit there and simmer, it can actually lead to you having health issues, okay? And also, over time, there will be relationship problems also with suppressed uh, or unresolved anger. Okay. Oh, how can we identify our anger? How can we figure out where our anger is coming from, and things to that nature? Okay. So we're going to look at some different activities that you can do if you want to try to help figure out where your anger lies. Okay. So the first one is anger journaling. Okay. Keep a journal. Record the situations, the things that trigger your anger. What's your emotional response? How did you handle that? Okay. So if you do that, you can go back then and look at it, and you can start to see patterns. Okay. So you can say, well, wait a minute. You can go back and you might be able to start seeing a pattern where, because of doing this, that you're starting to handle angering situations in a different way or in a better way. Okay. Next is what we call an anger scale. Okay. And we're gonna come back to anger scale in a minute and look at it a little bit more. Okay, because I think it could be a very beneficial thing to use. Okay. Self assessment. Okay. Questionnaires, you can find questionnaires available online or in self-help books where you can answer questions and go through questions and try to figure out where your unresolved or your suppressed anger is and what's causing it. Okay. Uh, Another activity that you can do role playing. Okay. Where you would enact different scenarios that commonly trigger anger in people. Okay. And so that's one. Next one is anger logs or worksheets. Uh, these can help you track your anger, your physical responses, your thoughts, your behaviors, and so forth. Okay. And then number six is therapeutic activities. Okay. That could be anger management workshops, counseling sessions with the therapist, things like that. Okay. So now let's look at the anger scale. Okay. And so this would be an example of a anger scale. Okay. So on the left hand side, you have your triggers. Okay. Frustration, unmet expectations, feeling disrespected, injustice, criticism or rejection, betrayal, pain, stressful situations, feeling powerless, or trauma. Okay. And then over here on the right hand side, you've got five columns: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Okay. One, two would be mild, and nine, 10 would be extreme, or yeah, extreme to that. Okay. So what you would do, just go through the triggers and say, okay, what effect does frustration and what you if you do this, what you need to do is you need to look at it as normally. Okay. And when I say normally, because there's always going to be times when you may react more intensely than you do others. So, how do I normally react to these things? Okay. Because that'll give you a better understanding of where you're at. Okay. So, like here, I put a check mark on one to two with frustration. Unmet expectations, I put a five at six. Feeling disrespected, a three or four. Criticism, rejection, I put a nine or 10 on that. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, criticism or rejection does tend to elevate my anger level the most, probably. Uh, so anyway, but anyway, that is an anger scale that you can do. Okay. Very easy to do. Um, so yeah, 1 to 2 would be minimum, and 9 to 10 would be extreme rage or fury. Okay. All right. So now, what would be some misconceptions about anger? What are some misconceptions about anger? Okay. Number one is that it's always negative. Okay. Because, like I said earlier, anger, anger really doesn't have to be negative. Okay? It's what we do with it, how we react to it. Okay, is whether it's going to be a negative outcome or a positive outcome. Okay. The next misconception about anger is that it should always be expressed. Okay. So there are a lot of people that believe that no matter what happens, we should say something. We should express it in some way or another. Okay. Now, I will tell you this, that in my belief that there are some sayings mm, that kind of get me going. Okay. One of them is pull your bootstraps up or put your big girl panties on. Or then again, it's my parents' fault. Okay. We're blaming someone else. Okay. Here's the thing. If we would have the very first time that something happened to make us angry, if we would have dealt with that right then it wouldn't carry over to the next time that we get angry. Okay. So on our um, in our logo for our ministry, you see a man hiding behind a brick wall. Okay. And so what happens is, okay, the very first time you got angry and you didn't deal with it, what happened? You laid a brick down. You There's your first brick. Okay. Well, you go along, something else makes you angry, you don't deal with it, there's another brick, another brick, another brick, another brick. And before you know, you've got this great big gigantic wall sitting in front of you, and you're not doing anything about what has happened. Well, if we would deal with it starting off, because this is what happens is most a lot of times we have a lot of not real important issues that causes anger because we haven't dealt with our anger in the past. Okay. So there are, I'm not going to say unimportant issues, but if we had a clean slate, if you hadn't built that wall up, you didn't have a wall built up, and something happens to you, something is done, something said, that it's not, that you don't consider it to be really bad, we should be able to get over some things in life. Okay. And that's my point. There's some things that we should be able to just say, okay, I don't like what happened, but I'm not going to let it destroy me. I'm not going to let it destroy my relationship with somebody else. I'm just going to let it go. Okay. And we need to be able to let some things go. There's no doubt. Okay. But for the most part, we don't deal with what happens in our life. Okay. So if you express your anger properly, then you will not build up those walls in your life. Okay? All right. The next misconception about anger is it's always visible. Okay? Now, I've heard over the years, over the last 11 years, I've heard, oh, I can control my anger. I can hide my anger. Okay? There are people that try very hard to control or hide their anger. Okay, they do. They try really, really hard. Okay, but here's the thing about anger: is I will promise you. Okay, and you may say, "No, it don't ever happen to me," but I guarantee you it has, or it will. Okay, at some point, it's going to come out. Okay, you can take that to the bank. So yes, there's some people that do a fair job of hiding it or not expressing it, but it's there. Okay. Number four, that anger is always rational. No, it ain't. Okay. The majority of the time, anger is irrational. Okay. Because it arises from irrational or exaggerated thoughts. Okay. Next, anger management. Doing this, okay, going through here, trying to learn about anger. That means I'm suppressing my anger. That is absolutely false. Absolutely false. Okay? Going through anger management does not mean that you are suppressing your anger. It means that you're trying to manage your responses to anger. You're trying to be constructive instead of destructive. Okay? Number six, that anger is inherited trait. Well, I got it from my daddy, I got it from my mama. Okay? Not necessarily, but do genetics play a role? Yes. Okay? Uh, mm, but I tell you what really plays a bigger role than really genetics, and that is the atmosphere in which you're raised. Okay? If your mom or dad has a lot of built up anger and they deal with it in very negative ways, one, you're being taught that from a very young age. You're seeing that. Okay. So you're learning that. That's what you're being taught. So you are learning this behavior or these coping mechanisms. Okay? That's your coping mechanism, is to do it the way that your parents done it. Okay? Well, what that what we're really talking about here is generational curses. Okay? It's a generational curse. It's being passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. Okay? So somebody somewhere has to break that generational curse. Are you going to be the one to break the generational curses in your family or not? That's the question. Okay. All right. The next misconception about anger is that it's a sign of weakness. Well, if I express my anger, that shows everybody that I'm just weak. No, you're not. No. You know what? It takes a very strong person to be able to express things in a biblical way, in a very humane way, than someone that doesn't express their anger. Okay? It's a sign, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of that you are acknowledging and you are trying to manage your emotions. Okay? Bible says this. Know this, brother. Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. That is James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. Okay? So, yes. So, what's he saying? Be slow. Be quick to hear, listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Okay? It's not saying that, again, it's not saying that you cannot get angry or you don't have a right to be angry. Okay? When you're slow to anger, you respond in the correct way. And that's the key to it. Okay? All right, right here. What's the right belief about anger? Uh, we'll pick up here next week, next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Okay. These will be anywhere, roughly 40 minutes to an hour long. Uh, okay. It won't always be the same every week. Okay. But a couple quick um, announcements before we go. Okay. Um, you can, if you want to get a copy of this material, you can go to vscministry.com. That is our website. And go to study materials, and you can download the anger material up there and then be able to follow along when you join in. Okay. Also, this will be on our Facebook page. So if you'd like to go back, you missed part of it, you want to listen to it, you can go back and rewatch it. Okay. And starting the 1st of March, the Victim Survivor Conquer Ministry, I will be rebranding the name, changing the name, and I'll be rebranding it to Faith Family Forgiveness. Okay? We have our own Facebook page. If you have liked our VSC page, look go to Faith Family Forgiveness and like our page, please. Okay? And so we'll see you next Tuesday night right here back on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. All right. Have a great rest of your week and God bless.